Blessings, namaste, and love, everyone. I'm spiritualist, psychic, astrologer, and medium Ray Sette. As always, thank you for allowing me this opportunity to share with you my astrological and spiritual insights. And in this segment, we are looking to the month of August 2025. Now, we are beginning August with the Mercury Retrograde. Mercury has been retrograde since July 18th. It will move direct on August 11th. And as I'm always inspiring us to recognize that not until Mercury moves past the point at which it turned retrograde are we not completely out of the retrograde influences. That's called the shadow period, and that date is until August 25th. So from August 11th to August 25th, we are in that shadow period. After August 25th, Mercury moves past the point at which it turned retrograde, and we are out of the retrograde influences. And as always, I suggest to recognize how every astrological phenomenon, including a Mercury retrograde, really does serve a greater purpose when we understand how to work with the energy. The Mercury retrograde, it's all about the RE words, as I've said quite often. And specifically with this Mercury retrograde, because it was in the sign of Leo, which most represents creativity. It also represents love. So we are being inspired to remember how every one of us has a creative potential, and creativity is not specific to art and music. Creativity is when the imagination is stimulated and we have the opportunity to apply all those ideas and bring those elements to form. That's very much in simple terms the creative process, and we're all creative beings. And when the sun transits the sign of Leo, certainly we are inspired to represent that part of us, also to remembering how we've come from a place of love. Leo is love, it's creativity. It's also being that childlike element. You know, when we become very childlike, there's an innocence that so many of us have really forgotten about, especially, as we've become adults and we get so caught up in the responsibilities, the hustle and bustle of our daily lives, we forget that childlike quality, that innocence. Being childlike is very much part of the creative process as well. And with this Mercury retrograde, as well as what I've talked about every year, the opening of the Lion's Gate portal, we're being inspired to remember these childlike qualities. Remember that we come from a place of love, that we have that creative divinity, which is very much evolutionary, encoded, imbued in every one of us. We are part of the all which created everything on earth as well as in the cosmos. And that said, we are, during this time, especially with the Lion's Gate portal opening, which the Lion's Gate portal begins about July 26th. It peaks on August 8th, and I always include August 7th, 8th, and 9th, those 3 days when that energy culminates, and then it closes again on August 12th. This is an opportunity every year for us to remember our creativity, our creative being, that we come from a place of love. During this time of year in Egypt, it's connected with the flooding of the Nile, which fortifies the land. This time of year is an opportunity energetically to fortify our creative being. Remember where we've come from, energizing that element of love. These are all these Leo qualities which every one of us has included and imbued in our being. The Lion's Gate portal is represented by what's referred to as the rising of two suns. Our own sun Helios, who is part of our planetary system, as well as the great sun Sirius. At the moment of sunrise locally, on those dates, specifically on August 7th, 8th, and 9th, we have the rising of those two suns. And that gives us that opportunity to energize our creative potential. I'm always inspiring us to recognize and remember how we are creative beings, and it's so important during this time of year, but also too allowing ourselves and connecting with that creativity and understanding that brings us great joy and fulfillment. I've always said that when we express ourselves creatively, we connect with divinity, or rather, we remember that connection that we have with divinity. And when we remember our connection with divinity, we express ourselves creatively. This is such an important, if not the most important component of this human experience, to remember that we are creative beings. And incidentally, our next full moon, which is on August 9th, coincides with the culmination, the peak of the Lionsgate portal. Now, even though the full moon is in the sign of Aquarius, Aquarius is the opposite sign of Leo. We have the sun transiting the sign of Leo, and the full moon, which at that point they are 180 degrees apart from one another. They are diametrically opposed to each other. So the moon at full moon is always in the opposite sign of the sun. So this full moon is in the sign of in the sign of Aquarius. You know, one of the points that I always like to address with the Leo Aquarius polarity is that, as I've been mentioning, Leo is love. Aquarius is the circulation of love. Leo represents blood, and Aquarius represents the circulation of blood in the physical form. So we take that one step further in remembering that Leo represents love, and Aquarius is the circulation of love. Aquarius is the humanitarian element. It's the element of great change, which is, it's ruled by Uranus, which is the planet of change. The Aquarius element brings forth change, which fortifies creativity as well as our personal growth. You know, certainly there are many experiences occurring in the outside world, which I have referred to for many years, that are occurring to shake us up, to wake us up to higher levels of consciousness. That's what yes, Uranus I was going to say, but also that's what the Aquarius element will bring forth. It will present the opportunity to change, to bring about higher levels of consciousness. Aquarius is a sign of the metaphysician. Aquarius rules and represents astrology, and those of us who are astrologers. And with the information of metaphysics and astrology, we inspire, one, among many things, to change, but also to recognize how, by allowing ourselves to change, we connect with higher levels of consciousness awareness. We awaken to parts of our human self that we might not necessarily be aware of, or that we have been aware of, and for whatever reason we may not choose to embrace. Aquarius, as I mentioned, is the humanitarian. Every one of us has the opportunity to really demonstrate and bring forth humanitarian experiences that will inspire others and create change in the outside world. You know, for many years I've been saying that every one of us, needs to recognize, to be the change that we enjoy, to be the change that we choose to enjoy in the outside world. Unless we are being the change first and foremost, then we're just giving away our power. If we are expecting someone else or something else to create change, we're just giving away our power. But I'm emphasizing with all of this, and going back to that love element, just really think about what it is that you really love to enjoy and experience in this human lifetime. You know, that love brings forth great passion, and I also inspire us to recognize that whatever it is that we are passionate about connects us with our greater purpose. Our passion is equal to our purpose. And unfortunately, many of us discredit that we don't have the ability to sustain ourselves by pursuing those passions. And remember, whatever it is that you believe, that's exactly what will occur. If you believe that you can embrace your passion, and by experiencing and sharing that passion, it will allow spirit to bring you whatever it needs to sustain yourself and enjoy this human experience from a comfortable from a comfortable place of being, that is what will be. And if you believe that you can't, I believe it was Ford who said that whether you believe you can or you can't, either way that you are right. So what I would suggest, especially at this full moon, because this full moon in Aquarius will allow us and give us the opportunity to awaken to an element within ourselves that is very much considered to be humanitarian. It can also awaken a passion that's within ourselves as well. And remember, by demonstrating that passion, because you're in a place of love, that's the vibration that you are sending out to the outside world, that being of love. It's so important for every one of us to recognize the significance as well as the profundity, especially during these times of great change, to be in a place of love, to be in the world and not of it, to observe the occurrences and the experiences of the outside world and know that they are not necessarily part of your experiences. Remember, in this realm of consciousness, everything is relative. And it was, I believe it was Albert Einstein in his theory of relativity that proved this to be true in this realm of consciousness. Nothing here is absolute. It's all relative, and remember, whatever is occurring in the outside world, it need not have a negative impact on you. And the best way that we can strengthen that is to be in a place of love. Do not be afraid of change. You know, it was probably in the early 90s, and if I'm remembering correctly, it was in 1992. It was one of the first experiences I had as a young astrologer to share my insights in astrology in a local newsletter, and I wrote an article entitled "The Winds of Change," and that specifically. In that article, I specifically addressed the Uranus and Neptune conjunction of that time, which it began in 1989 and it culminates in 1993, which really brought forth the opportunities and the experiences of presenting great changes in the outside world. Change not to disrupt our lives, but for us to recognize where there are many untruths and where we have been misled and where the misinformation has been given to all of us. We are in the times of the apocalypse and revelations, which is also another Aquarius element. And whenever I have addressed that, I suggest that we understand that the revelations and the apocalypse, it has nothing to do with doom and gloom and destruction. It's awakening. And in simple terms, for every one of us to awaken to that higher level of consciousness, that divinity that is in and present in every one of us and no one left out. And in order to be that, we need to recognize what isn't allowing us to really have that understanding, and much has to do with false information that has been generated in the outside world. One of the many videos that I want to create is the understanding of truth, and that no truth in this realm of consciousness is absolute. We are here and we are inspired to discover our own personal truth, honor the truth of another even when it diametrically opposes our own. In this realm of consciousness, nothing is absolute. It's all relative. And this Aquarius full moon that we have coming up, that's coinciding with the Lionsgate portal, certainly can bring forth great changes in the outside world. Sometimes the change can feel unsettling. However, change fortifies growth, and it also stimulates creativity. So if you're not comfortable with change, perhaps allow yourself to arrive at that place of comfort and welcome change, and know and understand that any shift, any change will allow you to spiritually take a quantum leap on your spiritual path, as well as stimulating a creative element within yourself. And as I said, the full moon, it's on August 9th. The exact time of the full moon is 3:55 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, and it is coinciding with the culmination of the Lionsgate portal which peaks on August 7th, 8th, and 9th at precisely sunrise locally. If it resonates with you, perhaps on those days, if anything on August 8th, allow yourself to awaken before sunset. Allow yourself to face the direction of east, perhaps conduct a personal meditation ritual, whatever that might be, and just allow yourself to be fortified with the energy of the rising of these two suns. Remember, without the sun, there would be no life on our earth. Nothing would exist. Life comes from and is energized by the sun. In a very simple illustration, look how a plant will always face its leaves and turn towards the sun to embrace and infuse itself, or allow itself to be infused with the energy of the sun. You know, there was a time when doctors prescribed sunlight as a healing modality. If that understanding resonates with you, I suggest perhaps exploring that even further to really recognize the importance of our sun Helios. Now we have our new moon, our next new moon on August 23rd, and I'm always suggesting to recognize the last phase of the lunar cycle, which is referred to as the balsamic moon period. That is the opportunity to energetically prepare for the coming lunar cycle. That begins on August 19th at 11:38 a.m. That begins the last cycle of the last period of the lunar cycle, and it gives us the opportunity to prepare for whatever it is that we are choosing to begin and explore on the new moon. And our new moon in August is on August 23rd. The exact time of the new moon is 2:06 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. In my videos, whenever I address a time zone, I will always address Eastern Time, unless for whatever reason I need to specify another time frame for whatever purpose. Now, the new moon is in the sign of Virgo. It actually on the same day as the sun transits into the sign Virgo, which is on August 23rd, we also have the new moon. And with that being said, one of the many qualities of the Virgo element is health, well-being, as well as our service to humanity. Now, Virgo is ruled by Mercury. There are two signs that are ruled by Mercury, Virgo as well as Gemini. Now, those signs can potentially, or rather most represents mental imbalances and mental discord. And what I always inspire to recognize is that discord, mentally and intellectually, is demonstrated in very simple terms when we're not grounded. You know, many times when there's a creative surge, sometimes if we're not grounded, the mind runs amok. The Virgo element can at times be very, very critical, very analytical, and sometimes can certainly run amok when it's not grounded. Virgo's an earth sign. So in order to process all of that energy properly, we need to anchor and ground with the energy of the earth. You know, and just kind of think about how the physical form is affected by the condition of the mind, which has a direct correlation with health and well-being. You know, we are very much inspired to embrace and recognize how the human form really has been designed to heal itself. Now, this certainly may not resonate with many people and may not necessarily work for others. However, I share with you my understanding metaphysically of how the human form is designed. Perfect example, just look what happens when you get a paper cut. If you just leave it alone, it heals itself. Any imbalance in the body, or rather any imbalance that the body experiences, the body has the potential to correct that imbalance. Another metaphor is look to nature. Nature innately knows how to create balance where there is imbalance. The physical form can do just that, but we have to allow ourselves, or rather we need to permit and allow the body to operate properly in order to do that. And part of that is understanding and recognizing the importance of remaining peaceful, staying grounded within yourself and connected with the energy of the earth, and supporting the body's function through high vibrational foods. If that resonates with you, certainly explore that understanding. I personally, I don't advocate I don't advocate one form of nutrition over the other, rather oppose plant-based to consuming animal products. Again, I believe that it all has a purpose to it, and for us to just recognize what resonates with us. And I'm always suggesting, certainly before consuming any food, allow yourself, always bless the food. Unfortunately, a lot of the food that we consume really isn't in the state that nature intended it to be. However, when we bless our food, when we place our hands over the food, and also remember, the hands have tiny microscopic crystals contained within them. This is why, with the hands-on healing, we use the hands and not necessarily another part of the body. For those of us who are, for example, Reiki masters, the hands are used as the tools for healing. But we all have these elements within our hands, these crystals, if you will, that can radiate high vibrational frequencies and energy. I'm digressing a little bit here, but what I'm suggesting is to always recognize the importance of blessing your food before you eat it. Even though the food may not necessarily be in its perfect state, by blessing it, you're causing the food to change its vibrational frequency to a higher vibrational frequency, and that is what you are putting inside your body. All of these knowings and understandings can be very exciting, because this is what allows us to really enjoy this human experience without necessarily having all the challenges that we have. And certainly, those challenges do offer an opportunity when we allow ourselves to recognize it as stuff. But many times we have miscreated some of our experiences, and that kind of goes back to recognize that we are creative beings. We are creating all our realities. Everything that we experience, we create. And sometimes we miscreate. Certainly some of these encounters we have chosen prior to embodiment, to experience. And I always say how it's going to play out, whether even though we have chosen it prior to embodiment, how it will actually play itself out is being defined moment by moment by moment by our free will, our choices, our state of mind, our being. Remember, we're human beings. We're not human doings. It's all about that being. And once again, it's so important this time to remember that we are creative beings, how we're creating and sometimes miscreating the condition of our physical form. As the sun transits the sign of Virgo, and especially with the new moon being in such an early degree of Virgo, it's another opportunity to take control of your physical well-being, your physical form, and really perhaps pursue an experience that will allow you to really enjoy optimum health while we are in this human experience. The more that we can enjoy, or rather the more that we can allow ourselves to really be in that place of peacefulness, we bring ourselves more joy, we counteract and we offset any negativity which is occurring in the outside world. Optimum health is priceless, and it seems like so many are really challenged with enjoying the experience of perfect health. That being said, there's no reason why every one of us cannot have that opportunity to really have the experience of optimum wellness, so that we can embrace all the experiences in this realm of consciousness and really live at a higher vibrational place. Once again, I'm spiritualist, psychic, astrologer, and medium Ray Sette. Thank you for offering me this opportunity to share with you just some of the many, many astrological influences during this month. I inspire everyone to recognize you're a creative being. We are creative beings. And in every moment of every day, we are creating our realities. Always choose to create and experience all things from a place of love. Many blessings. Namaste.